My name is Christopher Lucas. I'm on the board of directors of the Ashland Independent Film Festival, and also I teach at Southern Oregon University in digital cinema and primarily in documentary. So I'm really excited to be part of this Q&A with Laz Ayala and Nick Alexander. Thank you for watching Illegal. If you're coming here after this show, in the new way of doing film festivals for this year at least. So we're going to have a quick conversation with the producer and subject of the film, Laz and Nick, talking about how the film was made. I'll do my best to be an advocate for the audience's questions here. Obviously this film is this really great combination of a heartwarming, inspiring success story, but also this urgent call to address issues related to immigrant labor in the country and other kind of related issues. Laz, could you tell us a little bit about how the project began?
Yes, certainly. So, the project begun in 2016, more or less. And it came about at that time when the conversation around undocumented immigration reached levels that we had never seen before in terms of the negative rhetoric. And as that rhetoric became more and more of rhetoric of dehumanizing and criminalizing immigrants, I felt like my own story, my own humanity was being demonized and criminalized as I was once an undocumented immigrant. And of course, I felt frustrated, angered to say the least, and frustrated with what I was hearing. And I felt like I had to speak up. I had to share my story. I had to at least give voice to my story. And hopefully through my story, maybe give a voice to the story of others. And so I started thinking of ways that I might accomplish that. And not long after, I decided to make myself available to become a participant in this conversation. I was invited to speak at our local Rotary Club. And that, of course, evolved into other presentations at other clubs and other venues where I felt inspired and empowered to continue and encouraged to continue by members of the community. I started writing op-eds that were published in the Mail Tribune. And then I felt very empowered, and I felt like I could do more in giving a voice to immigrants. And so one day I decided to write a book, to use that book as a platform to use again my story hopefully at a state or national level. And as I was finishing the book, it's a time when I met Nicholas Alexander. He recorded a presentation that I was doing at a Rotary Club. And then the conversation of doing a documentary came out of that introduction. And months later, we found ourselves planning and plotting what became Illegal, the documentary.
Was that footage from the Rotary that's in the movie? I guess that's one of those genesis moments for this movie then.
That is correct.
Wow. So I guess we have a sense, Nick, of how you got involved, but can you kind of take us forward in this story once Laz introduced himself to you?
Yeah, I met Laz back in 2017. I just had finished university at Southern Oregon, and I was looking for that door, the door that would lead me to big projects. I studied cinematography at SOU, and so when I met Laz, I saw an opportunity, a story that was worth telling. And so from there, Laz and I, we started having discussions, and for a time, there really wasn't any significant movement forward. Laz, of course, was working on his book. And then in fall 2018, Laz called me and said, "Hey, you ready? let's go make a movie." And eventually we did. About, a month and a half of preparation, fall 2018, I read his book. Laz's autobiography, and upon reading it, that essentially helped me create the script for the movie. Essentially, every chapter of the book is found in the movie. So December 2018, we had a team of about 7 or 8 of us, and we embarked to El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and even Southern California, where Laz spent his teenage years. And so that was, again, how I got involved and the beginning of the production.
Great. I love that this is such a local production. You know, it's so wonderful to see really ambitious feature documentaries coming out of Southern Oregon. It's really inspiring. So I'm kind of curious, some of the really impactful moments in this movie, I think, are those scenes down in El Salvador. And I was curious, Laz, what that felt like for you to return to this town where you grew up, where you had seen and experienced such violence, and are kind of reconnecting to these relationships from when you were a child.
So, the most impactful experience for me in doing the film and down there wasn't so much being there in the community, because I visit every year ever since I left, ever since the war ended in 1991. I've gone back every year, at least once or twice a year. So I've been able to maintain very close contact with my relatives. But the experience, the impact of that experience for me was to be able to relive, to tell the story, to look back and just relive that experience. That for me was life changing. It was an undescribable experience for me to be able to record, to go to these sites where I faced, frankly, death, to recount all those experiences that I lived as a child. It was obviously more than just visiting. It was much more than just being there with my relatives. It was reliving every one of those moments. It was reliving that morning when my father and my brother and I got on that bus, a morning in early December, and venture out into, an unknown world. For me as a 14-year-old, I remember talking about that moment. In fact, as we were recording, and frankly, there was a moment when I choked up, and it's in the film, and I, as much as I wanted to hold back the tears, I couldn't, because I was just literally in that moment in many of those scenes. It was beautiful. It was healing for me in many ways. For me, this film has really brought a lot of healing in many ways. One, from my experience as a child, facing war, facing death, experiencing that, leaving my home country, coming into an unknown world. It really allowed for a lot of that healing to take place that I believe still needed to take place. But it also allowed for me to also heal from the frustration and the anger that I was feeling at the moment with our politics and with the rhetoric towards immigrants. So I was able to heal from that, to I would say to let out my frustrations, and to use those frustrations for something positive and for something creative.
Yeah, those were really gripping moments. I can imagine them being kind of cathartic, either in the moment or just afterwards, or thinking about it. And amazing to see those people you showed us, who it's such recent history, really, right? They're people that are older now, but they'd seen such trials, and you saw those as well, and it really comes through in those stories. I'm curious, Nick, what were the production challenges of picking up and moving to into El Salvador to kind of capture these moments? And then also, I was unclear, did you then come to the border? Was that part of the same production trip, and how did that work?
Yeah, I would definitely say, as a this was my first feature film. I had done many other film projects here locally in Southern Oregon as a business. And, upon starting this production with Laz, I knew that I was going to learn a lot and there was going to be many obstacles to reaching our goal. So when we were in El Salvador, we had a small team, and I think there was a lot of benefit of having fewer people versus more. But yes, it was challenging. One of the obstacles is just the kind of like the guerrilla filmmaking style, running and gunning. Laz would be walking around San Ildefonso, and all of a sudden he would engage in conversation with a neighbor or with some uncle or some cousin of his. Yeah. And Hannah Northrup and myself, Ezra, we all had to be ready to be in position to be recording. My wife Evelyn and Alina and others to have the sound ready because every moment was precious. And looking back, some of the interviews from the movie's important moments, we didn't realize the relevancy of them until we were in the editing bay. So I think the running and gunning, the fact, Christopher, that we had less than 10 days to film 65% of the movie is a miracle. And we worked hard, we were exhausted, but I think our communication, patience to do everything well resulted in a great movie. Now, as far as the border, we did go to the Salvadoran Guatemalan border one day, and that of course is seen in the movie when Laz is leaving home. And also on this same trip, about day 5 or 6, 6 or 7, we went back to the United States, where we filmed Laz's teenage years, and then we went down south all the way to Tijuana, Mexico. So the caravan was in town, perfect timing, and so Laz and myself and the team, we jumped out. We stayed a couple nights there in Tijuana, and again, a very powerful sequence of images. And that, of course, came all within a 10-day film trip.
Wow. Excellent timing. I know a lot of great documentaries these days are, they're great stories, but also they're part of larger efforts, which I know for you, Laz, that includes your nonprofit, the Illegal the Project. Could you talk about the mission of that nonprofit?
Yes. So Illegal, the project, really was born out of, again, my desire to humanize the conversation around immigrants, to give voice, to what I believe are the voiceless through my story, and to hopefully inspire others with similar stories to come out and give voice to their stories, use their stories to hopefully promote change. So Illegal the Project really was born out of that vision, out of that desire to humanize this conversation, but with also the goal, the grand vision of also influencing policy, immigration policies for the for immigrants and for our country as a whole. So our goal is to engage not only the immigrant community, but the public at large in this conversation, and to empower them to engage in this conversation and to demand change, to hold our legislators accountable. In the film, we propose some solutions that are, I believe, worthy of consideration. And we have had some meetings so far with some of our legislators in Congress, and we hope that as a result of the efforts that we are making today with the film and the release of Illegal the book in the next month or two, that with those two pieces of collateral information, that we can hopefully engage our legislators as well.
Great. That was going to be my next question, is if you had, found yourself being approached or in conversations about these policy proposals in the movie, because this is certainly the kind of film that starts those conversations, right? So that's great to hear. I was really touched in the movie about the role of your sister, Irma, and your brother talks about that in the film as well. I wonder if you could just talk for a minute just about the risks that she took to make this journey possible for you all.
Well, I have to say that Irma made the ultimate sacrifice, and every time I talk about my story, I have to acknowledge that, because she did make the ultimate sacrifice. She left her comfort here in the U.S., where she had 2 children at the time, a husband, a home. She was a legal resident. She had married a U.S. citizen, and through him was able to get her legal status, and risk all of that to go down to El Salvador to get us out of a war zone. And not only did she go down there to help us get our documents that we could, our passports, and give us the money that we needed to travel, but she actually traveled along with us the entire journey, all the way to Tijuana, where she crossed the border by herself, went home, and made the arrangements with the smugglers that got us across the border in Tijuana, and delivered us a day later at her home in San Bernardino. For me, I mean, the sacrifice that Irma made is the reason I'm here. If it wasn't for that, perhaps I wouldn't even be alive today. So I'm very grateful for that, and she is a very courageous woman. She's as tough as they come.
Sounds like it. Yeah, that's an amazing story, and like a really memorable part of this movie for me. Certainly, the whole theme of family and family relationship and supporting your family is a really, I think, a great part of this film. So I'm starting to wrap up here, but Nick, I always like to ask is what people have coming up next for the directors, like what they've got in the works or just out on the far horizon.
Well, Illegal is my first feature film, and again, just 3 years ago, never could have imagined that this would be my first feature film. My goal was to film a documentary in Latin America, and I didn't know how, when, with whom, and yet now it's happened, and it's really turned out to be even more than I could ever have comprehended. So first, I'm excited to see where Illegal goes. In a way, we feel like it hasn't necessarily gone public. We had, of course, our premiere in New York City right before COVID-19 broke out. So we were blessed that we actually got to have a premiere in New York City. But right now, we're just so excited to have Illegal screened across the world, and that's what we're going to have next. But as far as me as a filmmaker, we are actually in the production of Illegal too, and so surprise. So Laz and I, we saw another gap in that we made a movie that showcased and illustrated his life and also the life of many immigrants. But now we are interviewing local business owners and understanding the impacts of immigration, of the HBA, the H-2B, different programs, legal programs that exist. What are the problems? What would they like to see reformed? And of course, in light of the times, the impact of a global pandemic that has many businesses in agriculture, tourism, hospitality looking for help. So right now I'm working on Illegal 2. And of course, as always, I'm looking for great stories worth telling.
Yeah. Fantastic. I had no idea. So that's very, very exciting. All right. Well, any final words you all would like to share before we wrap this up? No?
Well, for me, it has been just a journey. As you know, my background is not filmmaking; it's real estate development and construction. But I have learned a lot working with Nicholas. It has really piqued my interest in film production. So, Illegal 2, as Nick already pointed out, is in the works, and we have talked about some other wild ideas about other documentaries that we could make. So. I don't know what the future holds, but I do believe that there is probably there might be a future for us in film production with other films. So
That's fantastic. There are many, many stories here to tell in Southern Oregon, I would say. So absolutely, good luck with that.
And I was going to add to that, Christopher, just of course, now that for all of the viewers that have seen Illegal, we would love to hear your response, what you thought about the movie. Of course, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Our website is illegaltheproject.org. So we, of course, encourage the viewers to let us know what they thought. We want a conversation, albeit virtual, online. We want to talk to you. And so feel free to reach out to us on social media, Illegal the Project.
Great. Thank you both so much for screening this film at the 2020 Ashland Independent Film Festival. And I guess we're looking forward now to Illegal 2 sometime in the future. So
thank you, Christopher.
Thanks so much.